Welcome back to Mile High Hoops. Today we're talking about the Houston Rockets, another team that has so many young guys that my AI image app will not find pictures of them. But with all that being said, please like, subscribe, or dislike, and leave me a comment about what you want in the next one. So with that being said, let's get right into talking about Jalen Green. So Jalen Green at the start of the season looked really terrible, honestly. He wasn't shooting too great and wasn't really doing Jalen Green things like being the most athletic guy on the court, getting by guys, taking little floaters, that sort of thing. But then after the All-Star break, he kind of broke out a little bit. After the All-Star break, he averaged 22 points a game, shot 38.7% from the three-point line, was at 75% from free throw and 47 from the field. And so I think that's kind of what we'll see from Jalen next season. Maybe not to that level right off the bat, but I think with a higher usage rate, I mean, this guy now completely has the keys to the ship now that Christian Wood is gone. But I think that, like, for him to take another step, increasing the amount that he can create for others, playing better defense, and then keeping that 3-point percentage up that high, and then even maybe improving on it would go a long ways for him and kind of propel him into like an all-star level player. To Kevin Porter Jr. So I actually really like Kevin Porter Jr.'s game. Besides all the antics with like Cleveland and like throwing the soup at people or whatever, he's been like a really good like offensive player. I mean, his stats don't really show that so far. He's averaged like 15 points and like 6 assists on quite a few turnovers at 3. But I mean, he shoots the 3 at a pretty good rate at 37%. And I think he just does all the like small guard, like little cheat moves, so to speak. Like he gets those crab dribbles on pick and rolls and can finish from like all 3 levels pretty well. He's one of those guys that can just kind of explode out of nowhere and drop a bunch of points, or be completely a no-show one game. So I think like probably the best he could get is around where Lou Williams was, which isn't bad, but I think that's kind of the mold of a player for him. He is only 21, so I mean that could change quite a bit if he really focuses on some other things, such as like defense, keeping the ball tighter, and just improving offensively wherever else he can. Now that Christian Wood is off of this team, hopefully that means that Alperen Sengun is like the full-time either 4 or 5. I think he'd be better at the 5 because he kind of is that archetype of Jokic, even though he's nowhere near the talent level of him. But he did only play 20 minutes a game last season, and during that time, I mean, he didn't shoot the 3 well, but he did average like a couple rebounds, 5.5, and a couple assists, 2.6. And he did actually almost get a steal and a block in that time. And he just kind of showed his ability to kind of read the floor and just be like a smart basketball player, like while he was out there. He kind of just did all these little things that was all like just something that you'd want out of a guy on your team that can just be very well-rounded. And especially as a 19-year-old last season, I mean, he was pretty impressive, but he certainly has a long ways to go as far as like pick and roll coverage, shooting the ball definitely, not turning it over quite as much, maybe getting a little bit stronger for defense on bigger players. But I mean, all of the signs are there that he can improve quite a bit and be a really good player. A ceiling for him is not Jokic, but it's still like this center that can give you like maybe 15 or 16 points, a good amount of rebounds, assist the ball quite a bit, and then play some solid defense. And that type of guy around like these heavy scoring guards is probably like the ideal fit. So the last guy that I see is like a real building block for this team, of course, is their third overall pick, Jabari Smith Jr. And in the summer league, I mean, you didn't really see much of any weaknesses in his game. I mean, his 3 point percentage wasn't great, but I mean, defensively, he was quite stalwart, actually. Like, he had some crazy, ridiculous blocks, a lot of like really good recoveries on the perimeter where he was able to get back in front of guys. And his jumper from mid range looks really smooth. From three, it's smooth when it goes in, and then when it wasn't, there was times where it looked like there was like a weird loss of like motion in his like back, to where like he kind of stiffens up mid shot, and I think that could really translate to like a lack of consistency and power in his jumper, which I think wouldn't take too long for them to adjust. The coaching staff, I'm sure, would see something similar to that. And I mean, he just has all the tools. I mean, everything in his game seemed very well rounded, and I think he's going to be a stud. I think he very easily could be an all-star or even like the best player on this team from like maybe 2 or 3 years from now, and probably for a long time. It's just a matter of getting that 3 point percentage up and just becoming more consistent like around the floor. I'm sure he's going to be a good defender even as a rookie, and a good path for him, I think, is to be this guy that can guard almost every position, shoot the ball well. I mean, he drives past guys and can spin off of them and finish with either hand. He's strong enough, and he definitely sees the court in a very advanced way. I mean, he knows where to be. He knows how to get up and get the rebound around people. And I think he's just a very smart and talented player. I think like for a ceiling for him would be almost even like all NBA first or second team at some point. But I'm a little worried that he could just be like Lamar Odom. But Lamar Odom was still really good for a while. But we'll have to wait and see. For a couple quick hitters here, Sean Tate was like a good switchable defender for them. He could guard like kind of the 2 through 4, and he did a pretty good job of it. He shoots the ball okay, not great, but he definitely has some room to improve. I think that he's probably a guy that'll stick around for another year or two, and then he won't be on this roster. And then Kenyan Martin Jr., I actually really liked his game as well. He shot the 3 pretty good at 35%. He was getting some pretty good rebounds. He didn't play actually very much as far as minutes. I mean, it was like 20 a game. That could definitely go up this next season. There was also a rumor that he put in a trade request because he knew that they were drafting like a high pick and that they were probably going to get Jabari Smith. So I think he assumed his minutes were going to go away. I think that he could still get plenty of minutes here, and if they kept him around, I think he'd be a great guy to keep on this roster, because they do have a good amount of like these athletic 3-4 guys, and those are the type of guys you want on your team, especially if they can guard multiple positions. And last up for the younger guys is Josh Christopher. He didn't shoot the ball great last season. It was almost 30%, but he was like such a active player the whole time. I mean, he was flying to the rim, playing pretty good defense for being a 20-year-old. I mean, he was just a very staunch little point guard that like was pretty unmovable, and I thought just played with such an intensity that he's definitely a younger guy that you want to keep around. And I definitely think that he could be like a more athletic dollar store version of Kyle Lowry, and I think that that's the type of guy you'd want to keep on your roster for as long as you can. If not, let him grow and develop a little bit, and then trade him off for like some better players if they start to be good in the next few seasons. Now, last on my list is Eric Gordon, and he's only on here because he's like the one real vet on this team that has any sort of value. He has always shot the ball at like a crazy good rate. He shoots the three from deep really well. He's a thick, like football player build that is okay on defense, not great, but you mostly have him out there because he can create a little bit and he can shoot really well. And I think the most common trade that I've seen for him so far is flipping him for Duncan Robinson and some pick from the Heat. I think that kind of makes sense. Not in the sense that you're taking on a longer term deal, but that you are getting a pick and you're kind of just keeping a shooter around, another guy that Jalen Green and Kevin Porter can kind of throw the ball to and keep the floor spaced. But I do see that it would be better for them if they could find a team that has some sort of salary that's going to expire, just so they can open up any sort of cap in case they do get good, and that they can sign some sort of free agent. Okay, and now to wins. So they're going to be bad again. They're a roster of all like 22-year-olds or younger. They have a couple like 25, 26-year-old guys that aren't wonderful, but I think they're just here to build and develop, and they've got a good amount of picks in the future, so I'd assume it'd be in their best interest to just lose a bunch. And regardless of if they try to lose or not, they're going to lose a lot of games. So I see them kind of in that 13-14 spot. I think the Thunder and them will probably be just as bad as each other, and then the Spurs are just going to be the worst team in the league. So with all that being said, thanks again for listening. Like, subscribe, dislike, whatever you want to do, and leave me a comment down below on what you think I could do better or what you'd like to see in the next one. And I'll see you probably tomorrow. Take care.